What's up, you guys? My name is Wolf, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So, in the last episode, we did a showcase on LEGO Mandalorian, our first showcase of 2020. So, for this episode, we're finally getting around to doing a showcase I've been working on for a while now. So, yesterday's gameplay video actually went a lot quicker than expected, but that was a good thing, because it gave me the opportunity to finally put the finishing touches on part 1 of LEGO RWBY Volume 7 event. Yes, I've been working on this showcase for quite some time now. On again, off again work. I still need to get done with the other figures, but after I finished the first part of it, I figured that I can get started on going back to doing some showcase videos. So what I mean by parts of the showcase, in general, the whole showcase itself is pretty big. And in the past, when I've done big showcases like Overwatch and Avengers, I've had to divide the showcases up into multiple different videos. So for this showcase, I decided that we're going to divide them up into 3 parts. So for the first parts, I decided to kick things off with the iconic Team RWBY, all of which in their new Volume 7 outfits. So of course we got Ruby Rose, Weiss Ice, Blake Belladonna, and Yang Xiaolong along. These were a bit trickier than I expected, hence the reason of why this took longer than I originally intended. But by the end of it all, I'm really proud of how each of these figures came out, and I'm pretty satisfied with the overall final product. So, as you guys know the whole drill, we're going to take these minifigures one at a time, do reviewing them, explain my process, why I went with this route, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get the showcase on the road. So the start of our showcase is Ruby Rose in her new outfit. So for this minifigure, it was pretty simple of how to do. The torso decal, there's only one torso on the front. I used the same face decal that I used for the first RWBY, because I thought it worked pretty well. I think one of the more challenging parts was adding in these 3D elements and the hairpiece. So with the 3D elements, like how we did with Mando, I decided to make the belt three-dimensional. So I took some some extra masking tape that I already had folded up from Mando, and carefully wrapped it around the base of the figure, and then super glued it on. I don't know how you guys can see because of the cape, but underneath she's got a little sort of a little pocket, and a pocket at the back of the belt. And also on the front, she's got her little ammo click on here. I know it doesn't look just like from the TV show, but since it was such a small piece, I decided to make it all one piece and then go back do detailing to sort of show and to give it that representation that it is multiple pieces put together. And then of course she's got her little rose charm, which I tried to replicate from the first RWBY, but it didn't work out too well. But it still does give the basic idea that it's her little charm on there. Like with first RWBY, she's got the three-dimensional skirt. It was a little tricky of getting the whole idea of the skirt, drawing in all these lines, as well as doing that bright red here, and doing these little clips. I do admit that 3 out of 4 of them actually look nice. They look nice, at the back, the back of the cape. Hey, you can see of the clips, they kind of look a little bit better. Let me see if I can get the light in here so you guys can see. There you go. You can see a little bit more detailing on the back of the belt, as well as some of the extra little clips. 3 out of 4 of them actually look pretty good, but on the front you can see of one clip, especially down here where the bright red is. I accidentally made that a little bit too long. That was not my intention. But I couldn't fully go back and fix it. It's not too big of a deal, but it could come out. It could come out a little bit better. Sorry, I cannot speak. You can also see some clips on the sides of her boots. Like with the same RWBY. In fact, let me get another RWBY out here. So you guys can see a little bit of differences. This one has less 3D elements, and this one has a little bit more. I do admit that if I was to pick sort of a difference that I really liked between the two, it'd probably be the hair pieces. I used the same hairpiece for both of these, these. But with this one, as you can see, I added in like some more clay, which you can clearly see like all those like loose pieces of hair, like super glued on. One of the things that I do like about this ruby more is pretty much the highlights. I forgot exactly what I did with this ruby, but the highlights, they blend in more and actually look a little bit more accurate. With this one, I think if these highlights were a little bit more faded, it would have looked a little bit better. But aside from that, the hairpiece, it's not terrible. It is not terrible. Not terrible. I will say that it's not terrible. But there are a few changes that I would have liked to make. If I had just remembered exactly what I did to get those highlights, this probably would have looked a little bit better. But other than that, it's it's a pretty good representation of Ruby's new hairstyle. Her arms, they're pretty basic. I just painted on like so. I just painted on like her wristbands, as well as go back and do detailing for like the straps around them. And then with the cape, I decided to do the same thing of making the hood 3-dimensional. However, I sort of changed it up a little bit. Like to sort of give the representation that the hood is kind of folded in together. My original thought process was maybe of either doing this in fabric or maybe adding in a little bit of clay to like go around the front, especially around here. But then I realized that like that probably would have gotten in the way of the hairpiece, and we don't want that. So I decided to just glue it on here and recolor it. Recolor the cape to do like a very bright red, so that way it's all one color. So in general, this actually turned out a little bit better. The cape is actually much more accurate than the other cape. I did not realize it until rewatching volume 6 and 5 did I realize that like, oh, the cloak is actually, it's not actually in that design. It's actually more accurate to volume 1 through 3 Ruby. Whoops. So I definitely double checked to make sure that it was all accurate, and it pretty much is. And last thing, as you can see, I redid the scythe. Ooh, sorry. But I redid Ruby's scythe. So zooming out a little bit. As you can see, I completely like redid the weapon. I did like the first weapon of how that came out, but it was like a similar case with Devil Sword Dante. It was more of like a starter point, and I wanted to improve on it. So I took like one of my sniper rifles that I had in my Lego bin drawer, cut off the ends of it, as well as like the handle. I then took a spear, cut off a bit of it, sand the spearhead, your head a little bit down to the bottom part of Ruby's scythe. I then sculpted out the whole blade and the connector piece like through here, completely out of clay. It is a little bit loose, but luckily I molded it around in a way for where it's not going to like pull off immediately. And the detailing on this actually looks more accurate than the other one. So I'd say that upgrades, especially with the scythe, look way better than the first one I did. So this one definitely turned out pretty nicely. And yeah, so in general, both Ruby minifigures look pretty good. Like good representations of like the volumes they're representing. And all in all, aside from the challenges, I had a lot of fun doing this minifigure, so I'm pretty proud of how this came out. So next up on our list is Weiss Ice and her new outfits. I gotta say, this one is probably my favorite interpretation of Weiss so far on the show, because the outfit is pretty cool. I love the hair design, and all in all, this turned out to be a pretty cool build to do. So with this figure, like the same thing of how I did with first Weiss, is that I first did like the torso decals. I kept the same face decal, though I need to update on adding in that scar. I keep forgetting the scar, so I keep having to like actually paint that on accidentally. So that's something I need to update. But with both of these, like the front and back decals, were digitally drawn, and then the rest of it is pretty much all hand painted, especially like the arms and the rest of the skirt. So with this figure, one of the challenges that I had to do was figuring out the skirt. The skirts was a bit of a pain to do. I eventually settled down of doing like starting out of doing it in sort of like 3 different pieces. Like the first piece is sort of like the base of it. and then the other pieces were like this front and back parts to sort of like match up to like, as you can see, like this waist area where the belts are, to sort of match that up. And then underneath the first one, I added in like the white part of the dress. I kind of regret doing that. Like, it does look fine, but I think what would have been a more interesting aspect is if I did like the first like the white dress underneath like as one layer. I then doing this part of the skirt as like the second layer, and then the last two pieces, and then the last two front and back pieces as sort of like the third layer. I have no idea how that would have come out, but appearance wise, this actually does look pretty cool. So I won't give it too much hate. As you can see, like she's got like these front pockets. I did have to double check if they were more to the front or maybe like to the sides at an angle. And after double checking it over and over, I realized that like, okay, it's at the front. So we got it. I recolored in like the dark blue like on the top parts to sort of like, so that way it all blends in together very nicely, and it actually does. It was tedious of doing it like especially on the front with runs, as you can see, like the detailing up on the front, but in the end, this looks really, really cool, and I loved it of how it came out. As you can see, she has also got the 3D. She's also got 3D shoulder, like the 3D shoulder pads. This was actually something I wanted to do for my Leafa minifigure from SAO, but at the time I didn't know how that would look out. I thought that would look too weird. For this time, and for this one, I decided that, like, you know what? Let's try it to see how that looks. And aside from like this small little bit of clay that's a small little bit of clay that wasn't fully on there, and I didn't realize it until after finishing it. Aside from that, this actually looks pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of like how it came out. It looks pretty nice. As you can see, like there's some detailing further down on the arms, and there was supposed to be more detailing with the legs, and this was actually the same problem that I came across with RWBY, as well as a bunch of minifigures in the past, and that is there's a limited amount of room to work with. Like with all these, like with every character in this showcase, okay, so there is like an idea that there's supposed to be like more, and there's supposed to be like more detailing there, but because with minifigures they give you such a limited amount of room for detailing like that, it's really, really hard to get to put in like all those little details. So the idea, plus with the skirt in there, it would make no sense to have. It'd make no sense to put all the rest of the detailing on there if it was going to be covered up. But aside from that, this turned out pretty nice. I also did, like with Ruby Scythe, I decided to do redo the rapier. In fact, let me get the other Weiss out here. So like you can see some differences with the two. This one obviously has like more 3D aspects going on, and like the rapiers. I definitely like how this one came out. It looks more slim. I did try to make the blade like a lot skinnier in here, but this was just about the best I could come up with. With both sanders. I used about two different sanders. Well, three. Technically three, because I used like two different heads on the same sander. I will say that this one has a little bit more detailing, and I think it's because since this rapier has like more room to work with, this did add slightly more detailing, but in general, I think I like this one a bit more because it looks a little bit more accurate to the show. Another difference, as you can see, is the hair design. So with this Weiss, I gave her more of a bluish, silverish kind of hair color, because that's how I thought it looked. That's how I thought it looks like in like volumes 4 to 6. And with this Weiss, I saw that her hair looks more like white as snow. So I decided to just go ahead with a base white color, and I sculpted it out like sort of piece by piece. He's like first doing the top of the hair, and then like adding in like this little part in between that and the braid to add that as sort of like the second piece. I then, and like how I did with Black Widow, I sculpted out the braid, wrapped it up together, and then when getting it at a good length, glued it onto the back, and then adding in like like her little hairpiece up here to keep it all together. I actually like how this came out. This came out pretty nice. Came out pretty nice. And that is a similar thing with this Weiss and the other Weiss. Both of their hairpieces are sculpted. Because there's no Lego hairpiece that, at least I feel, comes remotely close as to what Weiss's hair design looks. So that's what makes Weiss as probably one of the most unique minifigures out of all the RWBY minifigures. Is because her hairpiece is sculpted, and I generally don't do like a whole lot of like sculpted hairpieces. I've done it with like Organization 13 as well as the Joker. But with Joker, I can easily find like a good substitute hairpiece for him. And there's probably a few other like general ideas of what I could do for like Organization 13. But with Weiss, hers is so unique. So when it comes to definitely like sculpting out the design of it, I thought it turned out pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud of how this came out. So again, I like how both Weiss minifigures look, but this is probably my favorite interpretation of Weiss so far on the show. And when it came to like doing all the detailing for the figures, like the belts, sculpting out the shoulder pads, the hair, the skirt, it could have been done different, but all in all, this was a pretty fun build. Next up on the list is Blake with her new outfit. This one was probably the easiest one out of these four to do. This one was probably the easiest one to come up with. So as you can see, like her torso is again digitally drawn with like adding in all those details. Like you can see a little bit of the zippers as well as the backpack straps. Speaking of the backpack, there's actually two differences like with the backpack. So like as you can see, you could kind of see some fabric. And my original thought process was maybe like doing a series of layers of like fabric on the back, but then I realized that like that would be ridiculous. So let's not go ahead with that. But what I did do is that like I already kept like the one layer that was on there. I then added in some clay, and then went back, did the detailing, and this looked pretty nice in the end. As you can see, like another little pockets. All these characters have pockets for some reason. And like you can see like some little detailing on the belts. The belts, unfortunately, does not fully come together, and it was mainly because I did these in two different pieces. So, like, the first piece, I cut this out, I, like, drew it out, and then cut it out as, like, one piece. I then went back and cut out the back of it, and then glued it on together, so that way it kind of matches up with, like, the general direction of it. As you can see, and, like, also here, you might see, like a little bit of spots of purple, like, lighter than the other ones. And that was because I sort of made a mistake when doing this figure. I originally did of, like, the waist cape, of what I did was, like, the whole thing was, like, all together. And then when I double-checked the photo, I realized that, like, oh shit, I made a mistake. So I took some scissors, and then somehow managed to cut all of this part off to match it up more on the show. It was a little bit of a pain because the paint had already dried up, and since it was glued on, I couldn't just like take it off, and then fix it up. So that was a bit of a pain, but in the end, the final idea, this looks pretty nice. You can see of like some like silver like on the edges representing the zipper. I did try to match up the purple, like the purple all together of like sort of the outline of the skirt. I don't think it's the exact same color, but it is like a good representation of it. As you can see, like there's some detailing like on her boots. Again, there was supposed to be more detailing on the legs, but since a majority of this was covered up, and also that lack of room, I couldn't do too much of it. But I won't complain too much about it. The arms, both of the arms are hand-painted because the detailing was pretty simple. I will say that the purple that I used for this violet is an enemy to me. And that is because if the base of it is like white, if like the base of the brick is white, I only need to do like one or two layers, and it pops out very nicely. But when I do it on any other colored bricks, bricks, I need to do like 5 or 6. 5 or 6, just to have it be one solid color. One solid color. So this paint color is an enemy for some reason. I think the best approach is when doing, if you're working with a paint like this, I'd say the best approach is add on like a white base color, then go back and add in like those other colors. So that way it saves you a lot of time and paint, and like a lot of time and paint to get sort of like that main base color of what you're aiming for. She has the same face decal. However, unlike the other Blake, I didn't recolor in the eyes because I didn't want to ruin them. This is a new hairpiece that I bought on Firestar Toys. If you want to check out their website, I recommend you check it out. I'll include a link into it in the description below. I do like this hair design. It was pretty cool. And when I saw it on the website, I realized I like fucking perfect for Blake's new hairstyle, which I actually like. I think it looks pretty cool. And the ears are definitely something that I wanted to change a little bit. So when pulling out the last Blake, I will admit I do like the eyes like a bit more and more. Like the eyes sort of pop out a little bit more. So I might go back and like try to replicate what I did beforehand. If not, I'll just leave it as it is, because it still gives that idea of Blake. But the ear design, I do like the ear designs of these, but I did add in like a lot of detailing to them, and plus they were a bit too thick. So I decided to thin them out a little bit, and then go back and add in that detailing. I will admit I was not expecting the paint marker to be a shiny purple. That was sort of a weird thing that came out, but I decided to just keep it on. That like, it looks fine. It's not too big of a deal. I don't believe there is articulation into the legs. Like, let's see. Is there some? No, not really, unfortunately. I was aiming to add articulation, but I think because of the waist, and all the paints that I put on it, unfortunately didn't fully come out correctly. But that's sort of a thing I've dealt with before, so it's not too big of a deal. And then with her weapon, I decided to change it up a bit. So with the first Blake, as you can see of like how I did her secondary form, like her sheath, as well as like her little gun, I decided to make her make the weapon's other form of doing like the gun sword design. So I took like one of these like little brick guns that I've had for a really, really long time, and up to the point where I don't even remember where I got it. But I took it, sand off like the little blaster part. Sand off the back, sand off like pretty much to smooth it all out. I then took like one of my spare katanas, cut off the handle, sand the blade a bit, and then super glued it on here. This does have a tendency of falling off from time to time. So I can't really use this like too much of like when doing like those sort of comics, just bam, bam, bam. But it does give out that sort of like whole representation of Blake's weapon. And I think this turned out pretty nice. Very nice. I would prefer if the blade would stay on in general. But aside from that, I'd say this minifigure turned out pretty nicely. And when looking at it, both Blakes have like their own 3D elements aspects. Like previous Blake has more of like the torso design as more 3-dimensional, and this Blake has more of the waist design with all these 3D aspects, and especially like when you see the back, you can see like the more 3D elements. And all in all, aside from the few things that I want to change, I'd say this turned out pretty cool. And last up on our list is Yang. Now, I admit, this minifigure I kind of made a bit more complicated than I intended to. So when going through this minifigure here, as you can see, her hairpiece is fairly similar to the previous Yang. He was saying, like, you can kind of see their hairpieces are somewhat similar to each other, but with a couple of differences. I originally had the idea of maybe just using the same head for this minifigure, because Yang's one of the few characters that didn't change her hairstyle at all. But before I came to that, I realized that when adding in like some of the 3D elements, like the jacket and everything, I realized that like, oh, maybe the hairpiece would be a bit too big to put onto the jacket. So upon realization of that, I realized that, like, oh, in order for all of this to fit on, I need to do some sanding. Need to, like, sand off either the jackets or maybe do the hairpiece. So I decided to go ahead with the hairpiece because I didn't want to damage the jacket too much. And after a little bit of trial and error to get it all together, I finally got it to the correct length for where I was able to put this on, and everything like stayed intact. So that was a bonus. That was a bonus that I really, really liked. So, looking on through further at the figure, again, like, her torso is like digitally drawn. I thought about maybe doing like three-dimensional, like, her little scarf, but then I sort of realized that, like, I'd also have to sand that a little bit, because with the design of this hairpiece, both of the pieces wouldn't fit together. So that was something I had to take out of the equation. But the rest of it, I pretty much kept that to my original idea. So I first, like, did the jacket. Then after cutting that up a bit, I then did the same thing that I did with Lady from Devil May Cry, and did, like, the three-dimensional pieces of, like the inside of her coat. I glued those on, and I was originally going to add in another one on the back, but because of the hairpiece of how it pretty much covers up a good majority of it, that would have been sort of a waste of time. It's designed to incorporate that on. I did try to replicate the hairpiece as best I could, but again, and you could see, like, some differences and some similarities with them. On the back is added in, like, another little a three-dimensional pocket, along with like a bit of her waist cape. That's unlike the previous thing. I decided to actually do it three-dimensional. So after cutting that out, I did a base black. I finally got the correct sort of length that I needed for that gold and for that evil gold acrylic marker. I finally got it correctly. So I drew out her three-dimensional little belt buckle. I colored that in. I also drew out the designs on the back, the design on the pocket, and there's supposed to be more design on the leg, but again, there's a limited amount of room. So I did the best I could there. Same thing with the boots. She was supposed to have sort of a purple scarf like on her boot, but with the paint color, it kind of makes it look black, and you need to shine it into the lights to actually see the purple texture to it. So that was a bit of an unfortunate outcome, but it still represents that whole idea of the design for the character, and then with the shotgun gauntlets, I'll have to say the general base design of the gauntlets, I like the original a bit more. But with this one, I decided to since I was already redoing a majority of the other weapons, I decided to redo it for this one as well. And since I already had an idea of what to do with the gauntlets, I decided to, like, get a couple of Lego handcuffs, sand off like the connector piece, as well as do some more sanding, like not just like those little bumps, but also I sand off of like the both ends of the gauntlets. So like the idea that if I wanted to fold it in, I can't fold it in because of the fabric, but if I wanted to fold it in, the gauntlet would stay onto the arm and not get removed too badly. There's some more detailing on one of the other gauntlets. Sorry. There's some, like, more detailing on the arms. Like, if I can... there we go. Like, as you can see, like, there's some detailing for, like, the rest of Yang's sleeves. So, like, detailing up there. But with the gauntlet covering it up, there's not really a whole point to it. But I decided to just put that on anyways, to, like, match it up for the character. And then with this other gauntlet, I realized that both of the gauntlets are actually different in their own ways. This one I feel like is a bit more, I guess, robust, and sort of blends in more to Yang's prosthetic. So I did have to look at a couple of photos to get the general idea of how to do this arm. And another tricky thing was the minifigure that I was using this on, because I didn't sculpt out these gauntlets onto this figure. The tricky part was like incorporating those pieces on like the cuff, but as well as making sure that they would not get stuck to the other arm, because I had already done all this detailing and everything, and it was just like, That's like, I don't want to redo any of these figures. I don't want to redo any of these guys. So if one thing comes off, then I need to scrap it. But luckily, the whole piece managed to stay together thanks to some glue as well as the clay drying, combining that with the paint, and in the end, with the final result, it came out pretty nicely. Let's see. So definitely looking at these two different figures, I'd say that this one's a bit more like a plain kind of figure. And like, aside from the gauntlet, there's not really a lot of 3D elements. And with this one, it actually adds in a lot more 3D elements than the first one. And the gauntlets could have come out a little bit better. Again, there are a few things that it could have done differently. But all in all, I'd say with the final result, this was a pretty cool minifigure to come up with. So that does it for this episode of LEGO Arts, and that does it for part 1 of RWBY Volume 7 showcases. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. With all in all of all of these figures, they were a bit more complicated than I originally thought they would be. Like, I did know that they would be a challenge, but I was sort of like coming up with the ideas of how to take like all these characters and interpret them into Lego format. Was a bit trickier than fully expected. But in the end, with the general final results, I am pretty satisfied with all of these, and I'm really looking forward for the final outcome of the remaining two parts. So with the characters that I am working on is Jean, Ren, Nora, Oscar, Penny, Crow, and Winter. I did finish Crow. I did technically finish Crow and Ren. I just need to finish up their weapons. I'm halfway done to Nora. Nora, and about a quarter of the way with John, and then I need to get started on Oscar, Penny, and Winter. Again, I'm sorry that these showcases are coming in a little bit longer than I expected. This is pretty much the reason why I don't give myself deadlines. It's because I generally don't know how long each of these showcases will take. Because I'm alternating in between working on RWBY as well as doing Showdown Bandit. So it's pretty much become a case for it's on again, off again work between those, as well as working on like some let's plays, and general life stuff. But I assure you, the showcases are coming along greatly, and I can't wait to see what the final results. And as soon as they're done, we'll continue on some videos. It is for you guys to upload to the channel. Speaking of which, if you guys want to see like the first, like my first RWBY showcase, you can check it out in my LEGO Arts playlist, as well as like some of my other creations like Kingdom Hearts, God of War, Devil May Cry, and a whole bunch of other ones. And if you guys want to check out like some of the decals that I've made to get a better idea of them, you can check them out on my DeviantArt page in the description below. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time in the next video. Bye bye.